Here we go. Hello, 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 and happy Monday. It's actually the Monday after Mother's Day. So to those who are mothers, happy Mother's Day. And I've been having a good time with Analiza. So today's guest is CEO, executive coach, and author, Analiza Quiroz Wolf. She is the founder of Women of Color Rise, an equity-based coaching firm focused on women and people of color. Analiza, tell us a little bit more about you.
So, Deneen, I'm a proud Filipina American. Parents immigrated from the Philippines, born in San Diego, and my entire life is about how do we unleash potential? And as fellow women leaders of color, how do we release the potential of ourselves, especially to get to top roles? That means we need the confidence, we need tools, we need each other, community to get there. So I'm all about that.
I love that. And so that's why I chose for the title of our conversation, Up, Down, and Across, Leveraging the Power of Networks, Mentors, and Sponsor Relationships. So I actually was in corporate for 20 plus years. I am retired, going on my 2-year worker, no, wait, what do I call it? Retireversary. So in June. But what I do know, and what's still the situation in case today is that a lot of people, they don't understand the difference between like a mentor and a sponsor. So I'm very excited to kind of talk about that and get your perspective. I talk about relationship building versus networking. So we can get into that as well. But let's kind of start with your equity-based coaching firm and talk to us a little bit more about how you got there and what it's about.
So after I went to Stanford, I served in the Air Force.
Let me stop you for a moment. Were you there with Issa Rae?
No, you're so sweet. That's awesome.
Hold on. Let's get to the most important of Stanford. Were you there with Issa? Do you know Issa? Have you met Issa? Because I love Issa.
Amazing. I was there when Tiger Williams was there and when Chelsea Clinton was there, but
Okay.
unfortunately not.
Okay.
I would say, Deneen, this is amazing because look, it is about community, right? If I said Detroit, do you know Deneen? We got to connect and say these are people you should know because if you want to one have fun in the world, but also get ahead, we got to know the people. We got to
Yeah.
know the people. So I kind of want to know her.
Right. Yeah. I need you to know her and then get back with me and let me know when you meet her. Right. Because you're alumni.
Exactly.
So you know what? You're going to meet her like probably within the next year because this came up in this conversation.
It has to. It has
Yeah.
to now.
I'm putting it out there.
Okay. So, yes, Stanford Air Force Business School at Northwestern, met my husband, and then served in schools. And so, did schools leadership, started schools for low income students of color, including myself. When I was a kid, I went to a pretty terrible school and really wanted to commit myself to having kids have great schools. And so, the whole arc of all of this, Deneen, is that we are about helping all people, particularly women of color, get the resources we need so that we can thrive at work, thrive at life. And it's those things, Deneen, like make sure you focus on people, not just the job. Do a good job, yes, but don't keep your head down. Look up, get to know Issa, get to know Deneen, check in with these people because you can help them. And also, you can ask for help too. And so those are the things I just didn't know back at Stanford. I thought get good grades and apply for jobs and hope that they see that I'm a really good worker and keep my head down and maybe they'll see that I can lead and then maybe I'll get an opportunity to show that I can have an impact. I mean, it was just this like this myth
Mhm.
of here's how you get ahead, here's how you do well in life. And so, yes, this is why equity-based coaching is about giving people the knowledge, but also those cheat codes, which are obvious, I think, to many people, but not to me. And I think not to some populations, including marginalized communities.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that is the key of everything, right? What you're talking about, because there was a time when people did go to work, put their head down, and then were recognized and noticed, right? And so as you were talking about that, I was thinking like that was like the norm, like people did that. And then I started thinking, well, you know what? Some people kind of still do that, but there's more to it, right? It's more to it like, okay, they're liked as well, right? So they are putting their head down and they are working, but then they're probably not us. They're probably not of color. They're probably not the marginalized, right? And then also there's some who are not doing much of anything and still are getting those opportunities just because, right? Some old systems that are still in place are still happening. So absolutely. So I love that you um, focus on this, and that's part of your business, and that's what you're doing in life. And something else I wanted to share, so it's absolutely about who you know. I tell my son, and I think that this is more important, is who knows you. So kind of how you were saying, with knowing Issa and, folks knowing Deneen, yeah, it is about who knows us because they're talking about us in those rooms that we're not in. So we can kind of pivot then and talk about more about the power of the networks, the power of mentors and sponsor relationships.
Okay, so I want to tell a story, and I'm sure you have many stories from your 20 plus years of corporate. I was graduating from Stanford and I was trying to do a research project, and it was going to be on the Air Force. I wanted to see, I was an ROTC student, and I was really grateful for the scholarship that the Air Force had given me. And I was really curious to see what happened to these ROTC scholarship students. Did they go on to become general officers, or did they just take the scholarship and leave? And I started to call for this data. This is back in the day, Deneen. We were calling, there's no website with all the data. And I would just say, imagine this. Yes, sir. This is Cadet Quiroz, and I'd really like to get this data on social. I mean, it was so ridiculous. I was asking for really detailed data, and no surprise, after maybe 1 hour or 2 hours on the phone, no one would give me the data. But I ended up in the lap on the phone with a Colonel Mike Schieffer. And Colonel Mike Schieffer said, Analiza, where do you go to school? What do you major in? Hey, want to come to San Antonio, Texas this summer? I'd love to sponsor your internship. Get to know us. Maybe you'd want to come work for our team. We've got a ton of really great talent. I think you do really well here. And I was like, what are you talking about, sir? Like, I just want the data. But Deneen, Colonel Schieffer, to this day, and I won't tell you the number of years, but to this day, I invited him to my wedding to ask him for advice. I still talk about him. Here's why. When I got there that summer, I honestly wasn't that interested in the job. It was like a coding job. I'm not a coder, and I was surrounded by PhD people. But when I asked people, what they loved about the job, they said, I love working for Colonel Schieffer.
Mm-hmm.
I would mop floors for him. And that's who Colonel Schieffer was. He looked at me and said, I don't know, Analiza, if really coding's for you either, but there's really good projects here. You could work with high-level generals. We do really important work. You go to the Pentagon, you'll be briefing the Secretary of the Air Force, who's like the top guy. I mean, this is like, and I was like, 21. I said, who? Okay, sure, sir. And he would do that, Deneen. He would just send us to these presentations, and he wouldn't be the one to present, we would. And so I decided that I would go and work for Colonel Schieffer. And Colonel Schieffer, as much as he knew that that wasn't my passion, he said, Analiza, I want to help you. Do you want to go to graduate school? Do you want to get your PhD? Do you want to go on to what are you passionate about? And I said, what?
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, I kind of want to do international relations. And he said, you know what? Let me talk to my old roommate from the Air Force Academy. Let me put you in touch with him, and you can ask him up for a job. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I called this guy, and he was like, who are you? And I said, Colonel Schieffer wanted me to talk to you. He said, this is really weird. This is my like special ops number.
Oh, wow.
Sure, I guess Mike is fine. It's Mike Schieffer, it's whatever you want. And I was like,
All right.
and this is how I got my next job.
Mhm.
He said, whatever you want to do, I want to sponsor you, or he's a sponsor, but he was absolutely a sponsor,
Yes.
opening doors, introducing me. That's how I got the next job. And that's how I got the next job. That's how I got a business school recommendation. And these angels, these sponsors, they're so different than mentors, right, Deneen?
Mm-hmm.
They're not sitting with us saying like, you should read this book,
Right.
or here's what I would do. They're actually giving you the contacts. They're giving you the jobs. They're telling their buddies, hire this person. And so that's how I got all of these jobs that were honestly 2 pay grades above what and more experience than what they were than I had. But because I had Colonel Schiefer's backing, he leapfrogged me in my career. So that's why when I look back at the Air Force, it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my career, to show me what leadership is and to show me what sponsorship and truly caring about people really means. So that is my story about, right off the bat, getting really lucky with a great sponsor.
No, and you know what? And so really it started with a yes, right? So you called looking for something, had no clue that it was going to lead to what it led to, and you said yes to an opportunity that was presented to you. And saying yes to that opportunity then puts you in the lap of a sponsor who was openly sponsoring you, right? Because you were aware of it. He was telling you, do this, do that, and talk to these people. There's also that sponsorship that you kind of don't know about. Do you have a story about that where somebody was, speaking on your behalf, talking about you in those rooms, and maybe initially you didn't know about that, or maybe even you just sense that you got that next, promotion or opportunity because of someone who was sponsoring you indirectly?
Oh, absolutely. So I find that in our business, Deneen, it's about who knows you, right? You said that earlier. And I find that nowadays, because I focus on women of color, we both do, that I tend to get now opportunities or clients, and they said, hey, people are talking about you. They recommended that I speak with you as a potential coach or as a potential person who can run this consulting opportunity. And I'm not sure who is. Uh, but it's so special because the work that we're doing, I think, is now having an impact on people that we don't know, which is really powerful, right? It's not just my friend and my mom, it's actually people who find value that these are communications, these are different conversations that they haven't heard before. And so I find that that's happening. I would also say that when there are these places where you have jobs, and unfortunately, this is still the case, we get jobs based on who we know. Those jobs that I found, especially at the most senior roles, that's all based on the who. And so people will reach out, recruiters, and say, you're recommended. And I'm wondering who. And it just so much speaks to, what is your brand? How do people perceive your value? Are you top of mind where they think of you? And do they recommend you? And so it is so much, not just like your intimate personal relationships, but also all the people who know you and whether they still remember you and they can actually bring you up when conversations, opportunities happen.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about top of mind. And so I do want to stress here that, so what we talked about, and shout out to Mike Schiefer, right? For starting your journey to, believing in you and giving you and, helping you to have those opportunities. So again, you said yes. You got there and you were connecting with people. So you were building those relationships. And you also were doing the work, right? You were there and you added value and people noticed that. And so that then led to, Schiefer, still speaking on your name, and also people who you don't know speaking on your name. So let's talk about, how do we become top of mind? And that might be something that you cover in your book, The Myths of Success, A Woman of Color's Guide to Leadership. So let's pivot there. Let's get into the book, and let's also talk about being top of mind. How do we make that happen?
So in my career, Jadine, you might have experienced this yourself. I wish that I had mentors, sponsors, leaders who looked like me, people, women of color. And I've gone to a lot of different programs and schools, and I thought I would get this information there. Unfortunately, it's harder to get. Thankfully, now it's more obvious. There are these podcasts like yours, and I also have one as well, where we can have these connections. So this book, The Myths of Success, is about how do we bring those conversations in a place where it is easier to access for more people to understand what are those myths that we were taught that actually weren't true. And with these different interviews, I've done over 100 of them with women of color. What are we finding as the themes that hold us back? And so this is what the book's about. What are those myths and how can we overcome them? The one that applies to our conversation here is about people and particularly networking. First, focus on the job. That's how you're going to get promoted. You do a good job, you be humble, it'll work out for you, right? That's the first myth. And that's absolutely not true. Yes, you should do a good job, just like you said earlier, but you need to focus on the people. The people are as important, in fact, more important to getting work done, right? That's all about influence. How do you move your work forward? So you have to focus on the people. The second part of this is that the myth that we often believe is networking is so annoying. It's so fake. It is so not my jam. I don't want to do it. It's after hours. I'm a mother. I don't need that. But as you said earlier, that is a myth because networking is about relationships. It's about getting to know you, right? I guess I'm networking with you, Deneen, but I want to get to know you, the important work you're doing, the career you've had, your 2-year, your anniversary, how is that going? And that's real connection that comes from the heart. And it allows us then to say, I'm so grateful to have this time. I want to, and I want to do it efficiently, right? We're doing it in the morning. It's okay. You don't have to do it at 9 p.m. when we're out in the club, right? Those days are behind me. So I want to bring those two up because that absolutely has to do with our conversation. And to bring it down even a notch further, I would say that when we're looking for people, we want to be thoughtful about who we work with and for. For that first job, Deneen, it was a coding job. Like we had databases, like we were coding, hardcore coding. I don't even know what the coding was because I was so terrible at it. But I chose to do this job because of who. I would get to work with Colonel Schieffer. I would get to work with it was only like 10 people. And they have gone on, thanks to Colonel Schieffer, and also because of the people that they are, to be honestly top leaders in universities, at organizations in the government. And they've done so, so well. So I chose it for the people. And I would say that yes, say yes to the people, the opportunities. It might lead you to something. Ask for what you
Yes.
want or need. And then take a risk, go for it. Don't get stuck in, well, I don't know all the things. I'm like, well, how will you know if you don't even try? So follow the people, keep going on your gut, make it really obvious and loud, and stay in connection. This is a real relationship. It's a two-way street. Thank you for all that you're doing. Connect back with Colonel Schieffer, all of the people who've contributed to you, and try to find ways to support them too.
Absolutely. And I like that you mentioned ask because we do have to ask. We do need to let people know what it is that we want so that they can help us to get there, right? That they can help us to reach that goal, that opportunity. And then also, like you said, and help back. There's Carla Harris, who's written several books. She's high up at Morgan Stanley. And she talks about like, do 7 favors before you ask for something type thing, right? Like doing something for someone, getting to know like, okay, well, what does that person need? What is it that they want? What do they like? Those type of things. And doing something for someone is not always a huge lift, right? It could be as simple as, oh, I see your daughter is interested in Stanford. I'm an alum. I'm happy to make some connections. We're having this particular event that's coming up and it's something that she should know about. So those are some things that you can do for people, right? So simple. Like when we're talking about helping isn't always, all right, let me sit down and spend 20 hours, combing through this report for you. It's not always that. It is something as simple as, hey, there's this event going on. It may be of interest to you.
Absolutely. And we
Yeah.
have to say, Deneen, that our lives are busy. So we have for find the way that works for you to
Yes.
be intentional about how to stay in connection. It's hard to stay in connection with hundreds and hundreds of people.
Right.
So narrow down what's your personal board of directors that are most important to you in this season of life, and how do you stay in connection, real connection. And so find those ways. It could be a quick text. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Deneen, I saw this article, hope you like it, or happy Mother's Day, even
Yeah.
just like a quick text like that. And that says, hey, I'm here. I'm thinking about you. I'm here if you need me. And hopefully I can reach out to you too if I ever need that. So it can be that simple. It doesn't have to be so onerous.
Absolutely. And so a platform that I, recommend to people, like, really get into this. And it is a way that you can build relationships and do exactly what you're saying, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is huge for that. I have been like the LinkedIn queen. I'm on LinkedIn connecting with people, and we'll reach out, in times, and tell other people, hey, let's say you're looking for a job, and get clear about what it is that you want to do in that job. So less about the title, but more about what you want to do, what you want that role to do for you. And then find a company that you aligns with you, and, like, reach out to people who work there and start building those relationships, so that when something opens, you're top of mind, right? We talked about top of mind. So you're top of mind. And then also, you can use the platform to demonstrate your expertise around whatever that particular area is. And again, connecting with people. So we went to Stanford, before that ROTC, Stanford, continued on, all the things that you're doing now in coaching. So at what point did you take a pause, right? I'd like to talk about the power in a pause. And for me, that is taking a step back. It is self-care. It's self-love. Why is it important, and how do you take a pause?
So there's two parts I'm thinking about. There's the daily pause, because that allows me to practice being in the moment, being present, being grateful, reflecting on both the things that I'm so grateful I'm learning from, but also ways in which I want to change. So I want to just mention that there's a daily pause, and I do that each morning through journaling, through meditation, and then also practices with my family. So we do a what are you grateful for? What are the highs and lows of the day? And what's something you are proud of about yourself? And so those are practices I try to ingrain in myself and our family to support our pausing each day. So I have that. The second thing I want to invite here, Deneen, is one that I didn't hear until later in life, and maybe you already know about it, but there is this idea of a second curve where you have this incredible career and you are rocking and rolling. And at some point, it's not yet retirement, and it could be because sometimes people see it that way, but there's another piece where we are continuing to learn and grow and contribute, but it looks different.
Yeah.
And to get to that second curve, there is so much importance placed, I believe, in the pause, because often people don't pause and they stop the old career where they're chugging along and they're kind of a hero in their journey. And then they're left with what happened? I left all that. I have no identity. I feel really lost. What do I do? And this piece here, I did, it's actually how I got to this next pivot in my career as a coach, was helped so much by the pause.
Mhm.
And realizing, who am I now? I don't have to be in that top seat at a big organization. I can support people from behind, have these conversations, be creative, and allow my identity to release being such a leader. And that's who I need to be. So I want to bring both into play, because there's a daily pause and there's these like monumental pauses that really helped me in my life. And there's this trend that I hadn't heard about before that has allowed me then to become an executive coach.
So I would say that I have experience and am experiencing this curve that you mentioned, right? So less about, oh my God, I don't have an identity, but it was more so that I retired, and then I still felt like I needed to keep going. And so I did not pause, right? Like I said, I retired in June, and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to start consulting. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And, creating the website and business cards and getting somebody on the team to work and help me through. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to, coach as well. And like, oh yeah, still going to speak. We all have the podcast, all these different things, as opposed to, girl, just be still. Just be still and just be. Breathe, pause. You don't have to do anything. That's why you retire. You don't have to. And just take a, minute to really get clear, what do you want to do? So now fast forward, and I have kind of totally changed what it is that I really want to do or what I really am doing. And so now I went from coaching and consulting, still the podcast, and speaking, to now an emerging art curator. That's totally different. And so that's where I find this is my space. This is really for me, this art world. So we were talking earlier, I was at the Detroit Institute of Art because I'm going to volunteer there at the DIA, right? And that's something I can put on my resume. That's something that can add to the credibility of what I'm doing in the art space. And then I went to a gallery, to check that out and see how they, kind of run things. And they were having an event. It was a talk, and just paying attention to meeting people, right? Meeting these people and building connection. And so that's what I'm doing, right? But I needed to take a pause. I should have taken a pause earlier, just to take a pause, right? Not even to think about, well, what am I going to do next? Because I didn't need to do anything, right? And I needed to recognize that, which I didn't do. So I say, yes, take a pause daily, and take those monumental pauses. But you do need to transition when you're going from one thing to the other. Stop and pause, and just get clear with yourself. Just get in tune with you before you move on to the next thing.
It's so powerful, honestly. And to get to the next curve requires the pause. And it's so hard to do because we're chugging along and we're like, what's next? What's next? And actually to get to that next is actually to stop.
Yes.
It's antithetical. Like honestly, it's like a myth, right? Like if I want to get to the next thing, I got to work harder. I got to chug harder, when actually the secret is to stop.
Absolutely. And let it come to you. And that's kind of what happened with art. Art came to me because I started collecting in March of 2020. And then fast forward to October of last year, I started, being an art circle, around people who are into art, really big into the art world. And then it's like, okay, well, what can I do in that space? Right. And so everything just really came to me. And that's how I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And this is what I'm supposed to do at this time in my life. So what we're talking about as well is living a dream lifestyle. And that's part of how I live a dream lifestyle. So how are you living a dream lifestyle? And how are you, first of all, how do you define living a dream lifestyle, and how are you living it?
My dream lifestyle, Deneen, is about abundance. And particularly, I'm thinking about the vision board that I created. I create one every year. And it's amazing how pretty spot on it is. It starts with centering myself and grounding in my spirituality, my love of self, which honestly has been a developing practice, embracing my identity. And so there's self work, self healing, connections with my parents, loving them for all that they've given me, but also holding clear boundaries. So there's that piece. And then the second piece is having a really beautiful connection with my partner, with my children, having adventures around the world, and then being able to take them on shared passions. So we recently got back from a trip with family to do an adventure, and it's amazing how the children are reflections of us,
Yeah.
right? And how they can persevere through tough stuff. And then the last part is being able to contribute to something meaningful to me. We both care about women of color, and we both have creative passions, yours with art, mine with books and writing. And so how do we do that in ways that aren't so boxed in, and allow us to express ourselves with community and friendship, and also getting impact with our particular demographic of women of color? And so I love this because the mix is, when I wake up each day, I'm really excited about the learning and I'm excited about being able to contribute, but I'm also loving the coming back to myself, the intuition of what do I want today? And if that's just to sit and be still, that's so beautiful. And I wouldn't have known that had I not paused. So that's how I define it. And so that grounding in my vision, that grounding in my mindset is, I think, allowing me to stay really clear and feel, even with all the I'll say the resume success in the world to say that's so great for other people. But for me, I love my life and what I do, and it feels really meaningful.
I love that, right? And that is key. That's number one. You said about yourself and getting in tune with you and learning you and loving you. That is so hard for so many people. And I am one of those. Like for me right now, number one is loving me. And what do I love? I will tell you, I don't pause as often as I should. Right. So I'm going to definitely consider that daily pause. Like I still get up and move. Right. I'm one of those persons that I'm a doer, I'm an executor. I do. And I definitely need to pause back because that's how went from, oh, I'm going to consult to coach and da, 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 da. Girl, pause, like take a break. Just get still. What do you really want to do? Like when you say that doing a vision board, like when you're doing that, do you really feel good when you put up that you're consulting? Those are things for us to consider when we are making decisions and when we are mapping out our lives. Like, how does that make you feel? Because if it doesn't make you feel good, then probably don't do that thing. So I want to point out something that I feel was very intentional. And I want you to talk a little bit about why you do it. So to me, I felt you were very intentional about mentioning my name throughout the conversation. Is that intentional for you? Do you even realize that you do it? And if you do realize it, talk to us about why. Why is it important to do that?
To me, it's a relationship. It tells for me that I see you. And I
Yeah.
hope that you hear that I see you. And I'm not, yes, we're on a podcast, but this is us and we're talking. And I'm grateful that we have this time together. And it's say my name because
Yeah.
it says, I see you. And I've felt many times in my life not seen.
Mm.
And I want to make sure that people I'm with, they know I see them and I appreciate them. And whatever happens in life, that they know that. My parents know that I love them. My community knows that I care about them. And can we have this moment together? So it's not like I'm saying, now say her name, Deneen, but come back and be here with Deneen and know that I'm here with you. I want us to have this special conversation and she's special.
I love that. And I'm tearing up a little bit, right? Because I felt that throughout the conversation. I use people's names as well. Like I will, when I meet, out, person, they have a name tag, I will say their name, right? I may say, it may even just be once or whatever, but it is, I see you, I acknowledge you, and you're more than whatever it is that you're doing. So that's so special. So for those who are watching, I wanted to point that out because I wanted you to hear that because we are talking about relationships. We're talking about community. We're talking about things that can be done to make another person feel good and even help yourself to feel good, right? And that individual, they may hear of an opportunity and they will remember, oh, Annalisa said that, or Annalisa's interested in that. Oh, I think you need to reach out to her because she would be great for that. And these are different ways that you can position yourself for that. So before we say goodbye, what would you like to leave the audience with?
Deneen, at the end of the day, what I'd love to leave audiences with is how do we help ourselves be in the moment and connect with each other? And all of that starts with, do you connect with yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you center yourself and know what you want, what you need, and what matters to you? And so it's a myth to think, well, if I focus on Deneen, it's all about Deneen, then I'm going to be successful in life. But actually, if you focus on yourself, if I focus on myself and I know how much I love and appreciate myself, then I can actually reflect back to Deneen and to others how much value and amazingness and beauty I see in you. And that starts with me. So that's what I would leave each of us with is, do we see the beauty in ourselves so that we can reflect back to others the beauty that we see in themselves?
That is so powerful and nothing else to be said. So Annalisa Quiroz Wolf, thank you so much for joining Women of Color in Intimate Conversation and enjoy the rest of your day.